Dateline Arlington. Here, now, the news. Perhaps it is not surprising after the Arlington judge who presided over the divorce of the wife of the Black entertainment network mogul shortly thereafter married the divorcee and heiress to the fortune to find reports of bad dealings in the Arlington courts for litigants opposing the political establishment in their determined quest to change the name of Washington Lee High School. But often what goes on outside of a courtroom is just as intriguing as what goes on inside a courtroom in Northern Virginia. But who might ever imagine that harassment emails that were central to many of the complaints against Arlington Public School Board member Monique O'Grady by her former opposition would transform from simply harassment texting to harassment sexting, especially with the complicity of the entire school board. And such will be the topic of former school board candidate Major Mike Webb at the next Arlington Public School Board meeting, currently scheduled for September 6, 2018 at 7 p.m. The Arlington Public School Board first took note of the need to develop a policy regarding bullying in 2002, but it was simply a short paragraph policy defining what behaviors constitute acts of bullying. The policy stated, quote, "Arlington Public Schools is committed to creating a safe, caring, respectful learning environment for all students. Bullying or harassment of students, including bullying based on an actual or perceived characteristic such as race, national origin, creed, color, religion, ancestry, gender, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, or disability, is strictly prohibited and will not be tolerated. Students who engage in bullying or harassing behaviors will be subject to disciplinary action. This policy applies to school buildings, school grounds, school-sponsored social events, trips, and sporting events, and to buses and bus stops. Bullying which occurs off of school premises, including misuse or inappropriate use of technology, is also prohibited and subject to school discipline when the order, safety, or welfare of the school or its students is affected as a result of such out-of-school actions." Unquote. This policy was codified as Policy 25.1-17, regarding student safety, bullying/harassment prevention. By its latest expression in revision of the policy approved in December 2017, and codified as SBPJ-6.8.1 Student Safety, Bullying/Harassment Prevention, the Arlington Public School Board remained committed to creating a safe, caring, respectful learning environment for all students, but had removed proscriptions against bullying on the basis of age or creed, while including in bullying protection an expanded definition of disabilities to include mental, physical, or sensory disabilities, and also pregnancy status. Perhaps this was in response to reports in ARL Now in 2011 that bullying was on the rise in the Arlington Public Schools, or based upon the incident reports to the state in 2016 that showed an increase in disciplinary incidents, particularly leading to temporary or extended suspension, especially amongst African American and Hispanic students, but when Freedom of Information Act request was sent to Assistant Superintendent Erdos regarding the specific conduct that was contributing to this rise in incidents, despite her being able somehow to provide conduct-specific information to be compiled for the region by the state, she insisted that there were no records in the possession of the Arlington Public School Board that contained this information because everything was discussed in secret meetings where no notes were taken. Simply stated, whether it is a policy regarding renaming school facilities, approving a budget or establishing a policy on bullying, these policy statements are just words and fail to achieve the just results that were their intent. It is said that great leaders lead by example, and our children follow our example, but it is a tragic indictment against leadership that past political campaigns conducted by Arlington Public School Board member Monique O'Grady, and even Congressman Don Beyer, had indicated at least complicity with bullying tactics, and more invasive in perpetration by usage of modern technology available through email communication, social media inboxing and cellular phone text messages that can be transmitted through electronic mobile devices, which many children, as young as primary school, now possess. It raised great offense when it became clear that they had engaged in undue influence and obstruction of justice by co-opting law enforcement not to investigate these matters, and became intolerable when, called into court, Monique O'Grady, with the complicity and cooperation of the Arlington Public School Board, retained private legal counsel to quash a complaint brought to hold her accountable for unlawful actions that occurred before her election, and during her political campaign. Monique O'Grady, are you a teacher? What core values does this teach our kids? According to the American Psychological Association, 70% of middle and high school students have experienced bullying at some point, and almost 1/4 of kids in Arlington public schools have reported being victims of bullying at some point in their academic career. While, in a recent study of 48 school shooters, only one was found to have targeted his tormentors in attack, but rather teachers, administrators, and staff who they perceived to have failed them. The unexamined question in that study appears to be what events contributed to that perception that adults had failed them, if not protection from persons they perceived to be victimizing them. Moreover, approximately 11 million children in the United States have been prescribed psychiatric drugs, representing almost 1/3 of all of the children in the world on psychiatric medication, and over 10% of teenagers are on psychiatric medications, which creates a risk factor for both school mass violence, as well as suicide, which is only enhanced by victimization through bullying. While it may be somewhat assuring that teenagers with a psychotic diagnosis are actually less likely to engage in mass violence attacks, over 3/4 of children in this unique population who perceive that they have been victimized perpetrate mass violence attacks. However, teens diagnosed with psychosis, while being least likely to engage in mass violent attacks, appear to present early indications, because approximately 54% of the perpetrators harassed, intimidated, threatened, or assaulted people prior to their attacks. In 2017, Arlington Public School Board approved an additional $1.7 million to employ psychologists in our more than 30 public schools, because children were complaining about missing classes while waiting on lines to see a psychologist about their problems. 30% of the referrals to the Arlington County Mental Health Agency come directly from the Arlington Public Schools. Over 30% of children in our schools report that they do not perceive that their teachers or their schools appreciate their culture or their language. This is not a success story. In 1215, the barons of England rose up against their monarch, King John, the son of Henry II, who relented to pressures to sign the Magna Carta, which after 3 revisions became the foundation of English common law. It is of note that John was not the first to yield to the power of his subjects resisting tyranny and excessive taxation, and that shortly before his yielding power, John was the first monarch of England to be excommunicated by the Roman Catholic Church, under Pope III. And it was the tenets of the Magna Carta and its underpinnings of common law administered by courts that served as the symbol of freedom from oppression. But as all men were inspired in 1776 to sign the Declaration of Independence. But as all men are not angels, mandating government of necessity, according to James Madison in the Federalist Papers, no government can be any greater than the men within it, as in math, the whole is equal to the sum of all of its parts. And it marks tragic irony for this long train of abuses and usurpations to have been perpetrated in the Commonwealth that contributed to our Constitution most of those liberties preserved in the Bill of Rights, and of far more heinous impeachment had these acts occurred in the municipality that delivered victory in 2016 to the Democrat Party nominee, Hillary Rodham Clinton, as Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. stated, "Injustice anywhere threatens justice everywhere. Coffee is for closers." Do I have your attention? I know that you are interested. Have you made your decision for Christ? Now is the time for action. But you have the right to remain silent. This is Action News. Stay tuned for updates as they develop. We get the news as it happens and we get it to you before anyone else. Back to you, in the studio, Mo. 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 Hey, baby. How about a coffee date? Coffee is for closers. What's your phone number? Hee hee.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.